At 46, Kevin Federline finally spoke, not as the man mocked by tabloids, but as the ex-husband who had lived through Britney Spears' most chaotic years. In a 2024 interview that no one expected, he broke 2 decades of silence and admitted the truth about their marriage. "I loved her," he said quietly, "but loving Britney meant loving a hurricane." For years, Kevin was portrayed as the opportunist who married a superstar for fame and money. But according to him, the story was never that simple. From the beginning, he was drawn to Britney's warmth and vulnerability, not her fame. What destroyed them wasn't betrayal or greed, he said, but the machinery of celebrity itself. Cameras followed their every move. Headlines mocked him as a backup dancer turned gold digger. Every argument, every misunderstanding became public property. When Britney spiraled under pressure, Kevin became both caretaker and target. He faced a choice no one prepares you for: to stay and drown with her, or leave and be branded a villain forever. His decision to walk away made him the most hated man in America. Now, 2 decades later, he says he no longer wants to defend himself, only to explain. Behind the chaos of 2007, he claims there was a marriage built on real affection and fear of losing control, of losing her, of losing himself in a world that never allowed them to be ordinary. "I wasn't the enemy," Kevin said. "I was just the man trying to protect what was left of her, and what was left of me." For the first time, he opened up about the years after the divorce, the custody battles, the guilt, and the lingering sadness of seeing Britney's life become a global spectacle. This time, his confession wasn't about blame. It was about regret. What Kevin Federline revealed in that interview reshaped everything we thought we knew about their marriage and raised a haunting question: was he ever truly loved? Or just trapped inside the fame that surrounded her? In 2004, their story began like a dream. Britney Spears, the most famous woman on the planet, had just ended a high-profile engagement. Kevin Federline, a dancer from Fresno with 2 kids and big ambitions, entered her orbit by chance or maybe fate. They met during rehearsal for a music video, when Kevin was still dancing for another artist. She noticed him first. "He made me laugh," Britney once said in an early interview. From the start, the chemistry was undeniable. Within weeks, they were inseparable. But their relationship unfolded in front of flashing cameras, not in private. Kevin remembers the first time paparazzi followed them to a grocery store. "There were 15 cars behind us. I thought they were chasing someone else. Then I realized that someone was her." Their whirlwind romance became a cultural event. They married in September 2004 inches a small, rushed ceremony that wasn't even legally registered until weeks later. The world called it reckless. They called it love. Britney was 22. Kevin, 26. She was worth over $100 million. He had just left his job as a backup dancer and the mother of his 2 children. Shar Jackson. The tabloids devoured that contrast. "Gold digger marries pop princess," that headline stuck for years. In his 2024 interview, Kevin admitted how unprepared he was. "I was a street kid who suddenly lived in a mansion with security guards, assistants, and people telling me where to stand," he said. "I didn't understand her world, and her world didn't know how to understand me. At first, the illusion worked. The home videos, the laughter, the 2 babies born in quick succession, it looked like a fairy tale. But as Britney's fame collided with exhaustion, the cracks began to show." Kevin said that by the end of 2005, he could see her struggling with anxiety and insomnia. She wanted to be a mom, not a product. But the machine around her didn't stop. Friends of Kevin remember that period as chaos behind closed doors. One described him as torn between protecting her and proving himself. He tried to launch a music career, but every step was ridiculed. His album Playing with Fire became a punchline before it even dropped. They never wanted to hear my voice, he told the interviewer. Only her, silence. The pressure to perform not just on stage, but as a couple was constant. Every outing became a public test of loyalty. When Britney cried in front of cameras, Kevin was accused of exploiting her. When he stayed silent, he was accused of neglect. It didn't matter what I did, he said. The story was already written. By 2006, the distance between them had grown into something unbridgeable. Britney was exhausted, trapped between global tours and motherhood. Kevin was overwhelmed, trying to manage a family in a circus. He remembers nights when Shed paced the hallway, unable to sleep, haunted by voices from the outside world. She thought everyone was watching. And she was right, they were. That year, as Britney's behavior began to unravel publicly, Kevin found himself both caretaker and scapegoat. He was left home with 2 infants while tabloids published daily updates on her meltdowns. Every argument became a story. Every private fear became a headline. We stopped talking like a couple, Kevin said. We only spoke through lawyers and photographers. In one of the most painful segments of the 2024 interview, Kevin admitted he once thought leaving her would save her. I thought maybe if I wasn't around, the noise would stop. But it only got louder. When Britney filed for divorce in November 2006, he didn't fight it. I was tired of being the villain in her story, he said. I just wanted peace. The following year, the world watched her collapse. The shaved head, the custody battle, the hospitalizations, all of it became global spectacle. Kevin says he stayed silent because he thought speaking would make things worse. People wanted a villain, and I was convenient. He said, I had to protect our kids. So I let the world hate me. Old friends confirmed that Kevin rarely went out during those months. He hired security, not for fame, but for protection from paparazzi. He looked haunted. One said, like someone who'd aged 20 years in one. The media turned Britney's pain into entertainment and Kevin's silence into guilt. But behind that silence, there was a man trying to hold a family together. In court documents from 2008, he quietly requested privacy orders and therapy for both parents. He wasn't trying to win, said one family lawyer who worked on the case. He was trying to stop the bleeding. Kevin's version of events contradicts much of what the world believed that he used Britney, that he lived off her fame. In his words, it was the opposite. I lost myself in her fame, he said. And when it all came crashing down, there was no one to help either of us. For years, Kevin refused to respond to tabloid stories. But as Britney regained control of her life and the conservatorship ended, questions resurfaced about the past, about who really failed whom. In 2024, Kevin decided to answer them. Not to defend myself, he said, but to remind people that behind the headlines were 2 young people who didn't know how to survive fame and love at the same time. The illusion of a perfect marriage, the laughing interviews, the matching outfits, the TV reality show chaotic was, in Kevin's words, a mask we both wore because the world demanded it. By the time the cameras turned off, their love was already gone. What remained were 2 people who once meant everything to each other. Now separated by the noise of the world they couldn't escape. After the divorce, Kevin thought silence would protect him. Instead, it became his prison. Every morning, he woke to see his own face on magazine covers, painted as the man who ruined Britney Spears. Headlines called him K-Fed the opportunist, Pop's worst mistake, the dancer who took her down. He tried to ignore them, focusing on his sons, Sean and Jaden. But even schoolyards weren't safe. People whispered when I picked them up. He said in the interview, they didn't see a dad. They saw a scandal walking. He moved out of the mansion into a smaller house in California's Valley. Gone were the limousines, stylists, security guards. For the first time in years, he was alone with himself, no cameras, no screaming crowds, no spotlight. It was quiet, he recalled. Too quiet. I didn't know what to do with it. In those early months, guilt followed him everywhere. He replayed the final arguments in his head, the shouting, the slammed doors, the tears that came too late. I kept asking myself if I could have stayed longer, he said. But staying didn't mean saving her. I was drowning too. Friends said Kevin's voice changed during that time, softer, slower, like someone carrying invisible weight. One old friend remembered him watching a late-night rerun of Britney's music video on TV. He didn't say a word. The friend recalled. Just sat there, eyes wet, whispering, that used to be my world. For years after their split, Kevin lived two parallel lives, the public villain and the private caretaker. The court gave him primary custody of the boys. I never wanted to take her kids away, he insisted, but I had to keep them safe when everything else was spinning out of control. He rarely spoke about the nights he spent sitting outside the boys' bedroom, checking if they were breathing, or how he kept their mother's songs playing softly on repeat so they'd fall asleep to her voice. They missed her every day, he said. I did too, just differently. Britney's collapse in 2007 became a spectacle the whole world consumed. Kevin watched helplessly from a distance, clutching the TV remote like a lifeline. The image of her shaving her head, crying in a gas station parking lot, hitting a paparazzi's car, those were moments that, to him, weren't shocking. They were familiar. That wasn't madness, he said. That was exhaustion. He'd seen it coming. He tried calling her during those months, but his calls were blocked or intercepted by people around her. She was surrounded by managers, lawyers, family, everyone claiming to protect her, he said. But no one listened to her. When the conservatorship began in 2008, Kevin stayed quiet again. It wasn't my place to speak, he said. But I hated seeing her treated like a prisoner. At the same time, he couldn't intervene. He feared that any public statement would ignite another storm and his sons would be caught in it. Years passed. He remarried. Britney kept performing. From the outside, both seemed to move on. But the truth, Kevin said, was more complicated. Every time I saw her name trending, my stomach tightened, he admitted. People thought I didn't care. But how do you stop caring about someone who changed your life forever? He described seeing her perform in Las Vegas years later. She smiled on stage, but her eyes looked far away. He said, it reminded me of the nights she'd stare at the ceiling and whisper that she wished the noise would stop. Kevin's words weren't filled with anger, only recognition. He had lived inside that same noise once. The same craving for peace. The same hunger to be seen as human again. By 2024, when the interviewer asked if he still loved her, Kevin hesitated. Love doesn't disappear, he finally said. It just changes shape. I'll always wish Wed met somewhere smaller, quieter, where she could be Britney, the person, not Britney, the phenomenon. For the first time, he also acknowledged his own faults. I was immature, he said. I didn't know how to be her anchor. Sometimes I added to her chaos without meaning to. I wanted to help her breathe, but I was gasping too. Those admissions marked the most emotional part of the interview, not an attempt to rewrite history, but to own his part in it. I made mistakes, Kevin said. I said things I shouldn't have, chased things I didn't need. But none of that was out of hate. It was out of fear of losing her, fear of being nobody again. He paused for a long time before adding, and maybe that's what fame does. It convinces you that without the noise, you don't exist. Through the years, his sons became the quiet bridge between them. On birthdays, Kevin played Britney songs. On holidays, he showed them old videos, the three of them laughing, dancing, before everything fell apart. I wanted them to know their mom was more than headlines, he said. She was light, and I was lucky to stand in it for a while. But guilt never fully left him. When the number Free Britney movement erupted, strangers demanded he apologize. Others demanded he speak. People wanted me to pick a side, he said. But I only had one, my family's. The more he stayed silent, the more misunderstood he became. Yet, Kevin learned that silence, though heavy, was sometimes the only form of respect he could give. I wasn't going to sell my truth, he said. Not after seeing how the world sold hers. Still, he carried his regrets quietly. Regrets for the words he didn't say, the nights he didn't stay, the promises he couldn't keep. You don't realize how fragile love is until it breaks under lights that never turn off, he said. By 2024, Kevin had come to terms with the man he used to be. The fame was gone, but the lessons remained about power, pride, and the price of silence. If I could talk to my younger self, he told the interviewer, it'd tell him, love her, but protect yourself, because fame doesn't love back. He looked down at his hands, his wedding ring from a new life glinting faintly. I'll always wish her peace, he said softly. That's all I ever wanted for her. Peace. Then he smiled, not the confident grin of the man the world once mocked, but the weary, genuine smile of someone who finally stopped running from the past. There comes a moment in every life when silence becomes heavier than truth. For Kevin Federline, that moment arrived 2 decades too late. In 2024, when he finally broke his silence, the world didn't cheer or condemn it, simply listened. Maybe because we had changed too. The same audience that once laughed at Britney's breakdown now understood what it meant to fall apart under pressure. And the man once called a villain began to look less like a monster and more like a mirror. Kevin's confession wasn't a redemption speech. It was an autopsy of a love story, the kind that fame devours long before hearts stop beating. He didn't justify himself. He simply explained what happens when love, pride, and the hunger for recognition collide under the lights of a billion eyes. Behind the pop headlines and courtroom dramas, what really destroyed their marriage was something far more human, the inability to stay human when the world refuses to let you. Kevin once said, being with Britney was like living next to the sun. You forget you can burn. That single line captures the entire tragedy, not just of their marriage, but of fame itself. Fame gives you everything except the space to breathe. It builds you a kingdom and then taxes you with your soul. For Kevin, it meant being reduced to a caricature, the backup dancer, the ex-husband, the joke. For Britney, it meant being turned into a product, the perfect smile, the perfect body, the perfect meltdown. Between those extremes, love suffocated. And yet, somewhere beneath the noise, there was tenderness, 2 young people who tried, in their own flawed way, to build a family inside a cage. Their story wasn't about greed or betrayal. It was about how easily real affection can drown when every whisper becomes news. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's that fame has no mercy for the ordinary parts of love. It feeds on them until nothing remains but a headline. Kevin's quiet reflection in that 2024 interview revealed a different kind of courage, not the bravado of youth, but the humility of a man who finally accepts his past. "I didn't lose Britney to another man," he said. "I lost her to the world." It's a sentence that lingers because it's not just about them. It's about anyone who's ever loved someone impossible to hold. Someone whose light belongs to everyone else. He could have stayed silent forever. It would have been easier. But the truth has a strange way of waiting, like a letter never sent. His truth was simple. He loved her. He failed her. And he still wishes her peace. And maybe, in the end, that's enough. The camera that once captured their chaos now captures a different picture. A man at peace with the shadows that once defined him. No soundtrack. No scandal. No applause. Just honesty raw. Imperfect. Human. From a distance, Britney lives her own quiet chapter now, searching for the same peace he found through acceptance. The war between them has long ended. What remains is history, reframed by time and empathy. A Hollywood psychologist might say that Kevin's story is not about loss, it's about learning the difference between love and attachment. Love sets free, attachment clings until it breaks. For years, Kevin clung to the idea of being needed. When that illusion died, he discovered something deeper, the grace of letting go. That's the paradox of every great love story. The same intensity that creates passion can also destroy it. Fame only accelerates that fire. Looking back, Kevin doesn't ask for forgiveness. He doesn't seek pity. What he gives, perhaps unintentionally, is perspective. A reminder that even in a world built on performance, sincerity still matters. That beneath the glitter and judgment, there are real hearts trying to survive impossible expectations. And so, his final words from that interview linger like a quiet echo in the dark. "I don't regret loving her. I regret not knowing how to love her right." The tape ends. The red light on the recorder blinks once, then dies out. The room falls silent. Outside, Los Angeles hums with the same restless energy it's always had, hungry for the next story, the next scandal, the next tragedy to consume. But somewhere far from the noise, Kevin Federline sits on a porch, watching his children play, hearing their laughter drown out the ghosts of yesterday. For the first time in 20 years, he doesn't have to explain himself, and maybe that's what peace really is, not the absence of noise, but the decision to stop answering it. Tong ketin tong kachuyen. Một người đàn ông từng bị nuốt chửng bởi anh hào, quang của người phụ nữ mình ye cuối cùng chỉ còn lại sự thật giản dị, ye không đủ để chiến thắng đàn vong. Nung du de gu cho con người ta con biết oi hoi. In the end, every love story in Hollywood carries the same question. Did they lose each other because they stopped loving? Or because the world refused to let them love in peace? Kevin Federline's confession reminds us that even behind the flash of cameras, there are fragile hearts trying to stay human. He was not the villain, and she was not the saint. They were simply two people who loved too loudly, too publicly, and paid the price for being young under the weight of fame. When the music fades and the lights go dark, what remains is not the scandal, but the silence that follows it, the kind that teaches you what love truly costs. If this story moved you, stay with us, because behind every smile on the red carpet, behind every perfect photograph, there's another untold truth waiting to be heard. This is Scandals and Crimes of Hollywood, where fame meets fragility, and every secret leaves a shadow.